coordinated microbiome R&I activities within the food system to support European but also international bioeconomy goals. We were quite lucky to have 27 partners from EU, but also from the IBF countries, as you can see from this world map. We also had 2 associated international partners, but none of this work would be possible without the support of our great 3 advisory groups that came, so sort of the representatives of which came from funding and policy, from industry and different scientists that were coordinating the microbiome projects. And we also had an access to the great expert pool through the scientific networks of the partners. The concept of microbiome support was to use the partners, use this big group of partners as national ambassadors, and have them link the project and the project's activities with the different stakeholders group within their country. So we had a great exchange with educators, with industry representatives, with government and policy representatives, but also with other scientists and the public in different countries. The aims of microbiome support are linked here, but to sum it up briefly, it was to assess the current framework, to identify the gaps and the needs, and sort of to pave really the way between the research and development that was happening in the past years and transitioning to the implementation of the microbiome-based innovations. And to facilitate this, we also formulated our vision statement, which was we aim to see microbiome products and application in use to support the transition to a future-proof food system in line with the Food 2030 priorities. I was talking until now a lot about the food systems, and I really like this figure from the European Commission, how they see and comprehend the food systems in a really holistic way, in a way that food is produced, but also how it affects the health, the well-being, and the environment. And it's also what was nice for us to see is development and the fact that the food systems has found its way into the core of many different national and international policies and strategies. And why is it important to consider the food system? It's because, and this is again one of the slides which I borrowed from the European Commission, but they see the food system as a perfect storm. We know that we need to feed increased population. We also know that the production of food is using a lot of natural resources, and that reduction of use of these resources is also at the center of many policies goals. We also know, and this is really important, that there is a huge trend of both having an underweight and overweight population, and also a huge trend of the food waste. And this is why a food system is really one of the leverages we have to sort of work with in order to achieve many of these goals that different policies and strategies have set. Another interesting thing, and for us, the positive development over the years is that slowly but surely the microbiomes and the food system have come into the focus of also different policy stakeholders. And I will now highlight only 2 documents. One from FAO, from Food and Agriculture Organization, who is also sort of hosting this event or gave us an opportunity to organize this event, that published Microbiome, the Missing Links a few years back, but also more recently, European Union published the Food 2030 Pathways to Action, and one of those pathways to action is a microbiome world, which is seen as an opportunity for our society and our planet. Why are microbiomes so important? Because, and I think that most of you will know, they are all in, on, and around us. They are essential for the life of this planet and many environmental functions, but also for the health of most organisms on this planet. And what's also interesting is also how these microbiomes are interconnected through the systems, and a lot of knowledge that we still don't have how these linkages and these interconnections and these effects are really working. And this is why this is something where we need to work further and work on. How we started actually with the Common Ground workshop in 2019, where we had over 100 stakeholders in Vienna all together discussing on the status quo, but also on the future needs for the microbiome R&E activities along the food chain. And what was really interesting is we had all of these different stakeholders, and we actually, what we expected, there were going to be quite a discrepancy between their wishes and conclusion. And at the end, it was quite comparable, perhaps expressed in a different language, but quite comparable. And all three groups, and here I'm talking about representatives of government and policy, representatives from science, but also from industry, said there is a lack of collaboration between sectors. There is need to make data more accessible and better usable. There is a fragmentation of microbiome-related R&I activities. There's also problems with regulations, and there is also need to improve public awareness and acceptance of microbiome and microbiome applications, as well as manage better cross-sectorial expectations. And this is something where MicrobiomeSupport spent a lot of efforts to work on this in the past 4 years, and you're going to hear a lot about key results in the next presentations. I'm just now going to highlight some things that are not going to come. One of these things really important was enhancing dialogue between the stakeholders, because in order to make the necessary improvements and also to move forward, we really need everyone on board. And this is where MicrobiomeSupport invested a lot of effort. We participated in different events. We also co-organize events with the European Commission, where we also try to facilitate this transfer of knowledge to other non-scientific stakeholders. Not only different stakeholders, but also different regions are important, and that's why the MicrobiomeSupport was supporting the efforts of the International Bioeconomy Forum, an organization that sort of seeks to establish better collaboration at the international levels. The IBS is working in 5 different groups, working groups, trying to address different issues, and MicrobiomeSupport was, of course, participating and contributing most to the group on the food systems microbiome, the group that's actually led by the European Commission in this context. There was also a publication, a joint publication in Nature Microbiology between the MicrobiomeSupport and the representatives of the IBF, where we sort of discussed and presented how the microbiome innovations can actually lead and contribute to a sustainable future. Our last big effort was our final conference that was just happened in June this year. We were this time in Brussels, again live after several years of COVID restrictions. And we were really proud to have over 100 participants from 20 countries. We again had policy, industry, and scientific stakeholders. We had a lot of interesting discussions also again across different stakeholders. And one of our highlights was also that we had a podium discussion where we also have a representatives of FAO and other important industry and science, and also discussing about the microbiomes in context of this new and emerging and actual crisis, and how can we exploit all of the knowledge we have in a better way. The public awareness and acceptance is also one really important thing, and I here especially need to thank to our colleagues from UFIC. They did a great job, and not only with this using these standard ways that you might know with website, Twitter, newsletter. The collaboration with World Microbiome Day was established, but also the MicrobiomeSupport Ambassador campaign was raised, where different scientists, but also other stakeholders from across the world has started raising why are the microbiomes important and why microbiome research and innovations should be supported further, which is great for awareness raising. But we also have a whole section on our website dedicating or where you can find many different resources. They're all free to use. They're all free to use for your purposes to, again, increase the awareness and acceptance of the microbiome across different stakeholders. And we are here from, as you can see, from coloring booklet, from children to the grown-ups to the policymakers. We also have some new goodies in the pipeline. So keep a look on our website and the Twitter accounts. There's still a few more things coming in the last weeks of the project. And what I haven't addressed at all today is all of the work that was done on a technical side, on the standardization side. We had numerous publications, there are numerous recommendations. You can find all of this in our publication section. I would also lastly want to highlight really the collaboration we have with other projects that all also try their best to raise an awareness about the microbiomes and their potential for the food systems. With this, I would like to conclude my presentation, in which I just wanted to give you a brief introduction into the project, a brief glimpse. My colleagues are going to go into much more detail. We have selected for this, for today, the topics that we thought are most important for this audience, for this particular audience. If you have any questions beyond that, please feel free to contact any of us, either through the website, or here is also my email address. If I cannot answer the question, I would also then forward it to my colleagues that were working on that, and we would really like to use also this opportunity to ask all of you, if it's of use for you, if it's it's usable, please use the resources, please spread the word. Please keep up, the good work that we started, because we really need it in the future. With this, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I will give you an opportunity for a question or two before we continue to the next speaker. So please just feel free to raise your hand or drop a question in the chat. Okay, if you come up with a question a bit later, we will also hopefully have a nice time for discussion later on. I will now like to introduce you to my colleague, Annelein Meisner. She's a researcher at the Wageningen University in Research. She has a background in microbial ecology and also some experience in policy work. And within the MicrobiomeSupport, she was responsible for our mapping activities and also for interpretation of all of this data that we collected. And Annelein, up to you, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Tanja, for the introduction. Can you see the presentation in presentation mode?
Yeah, it's perfect, thank you.
Okay, yeah, thanks for the introduction. So I will present some of the work we did in work package 1 of the Microbiome Support project. And before I start, I like to thank the people that contributed. So it was really an activity where each partner contributed, and that is named in the Microbiome Support consortium here. So before I start, I would like to tell you, what is actually considered a microbiome. The Microbiome Support project made this definition in the Common Ground workshop, and it is defined as a community of bacteria, archaea, fungi, and other microorganisms that occupy a well-defined environment. And also their activity influences that environment they are living in. So they're not only the ones who are there, but also what they are doing there. And they can occur in the rhizosphere around the roots of plants, for example, or in your own gut. Microbiomes occur everywhere around us. So, for example, in the oceans, in the soil environment, in the plants, in animals, on your food that you're eating, on your body and in your body, and on plants and in algae and fish. Microbiomes are also very numerous. So there are more microorganisms in souls than human on Earth. And our human body contains as much microbial cells as human cells. And microbiomes are also connected. So this figure Tanja showed, but if you look at the holistic view, microbiomes are also connected. So if you, for example, eat an apple that's produced on soil, these microbes could potentially transfer along the whole food system. But when people eat them raw, and their waste streams can be transferred, etc. But why are microbes actually important? Well, they're of course often associated with disease and food spoilage, which we don't want. But they also provide many services to us. They, for example, are involved in carbon sequestration in soils. They are important for the development of our immune system. They can provide resistance to pathogens, but also to pests and diseases in plants. They are important for nutrient absorption, but also for feed conversion. So they have lots of services that we like them for, but they're not always valued for that reason. And that's why microbiome-based solutions can contribute to the sustainable development goals and Green Deal solutions. And that's also why microbiome research or microbiome-based solutions are considered a priority research area by the Food 2030 agenda. But what is actually the current state of microbiome research of this field? Yeah, we studied this, the current state of the microbiome research landscape by collecting information. We collected bibliometric information, so the information in published literature, but also we collected information about research and innovation activities by a global mapping. And for the global mapping, we collected information via 25 country contact points that collected their national data. And in addition, we did a desk study where we searched the Cordis database with all Horizon 2020 projects, and other supranational activities were also identified through desk study. This collected information is important to inform about the current state of the research field, to have insights in trends over the last years, to identify strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, to underpin a joint strategic research and innovation agenda. And I think that Emmanuelle Maguin will later present this. And it's also important to provide information-based recommendations. So what came out of our study? Here you see a figure with, on the x-axis the publication year, and on the y-axis the number of publications. And there has been an exponential increase in the number of publications in the microbiome research fields since 2010. So you can conclude that microbiome is a booming research field. And here you see a network analysis of this bibliometric results, where the lines are connectors, and each dot represents a publication. And the bigger the dots, the more connections it has with other publications. And you see here, for example, our group of green dots that represent publications that study soil and plant microbiomes. Here are a group of more pink dots that represents publications considering human microbiomes. So you see that all these publications cover different areas of the food system, but there are not so many connections between different areas of the food system. So for example, between the human microbiome and the soil and plant microbiome. We also collected research projects, and we collected a little bit over 10,000 research projects. And about 39% of these projects study human microbiomes. About 25% of these projects study microbiomes in the environment, 13% in primary production systems, and 7% study microbiomes in food products and food processing, and 3% in waste streams. So also research projects cover all areas of the food system, but mostly the human microbiome is studied. So microbiome research is performed in different science fields, in different environments, such as soil, human, plants, animals, and foods. But we also find out that it's often studied in one ecosystem at a time. So in human microbiomes, plant microbiomes, animal microbiomes, etc. So microbiome research seems fragmented over science fields, because microbiome research is mostly studied within one field. And there are several causes that we think are reasons for this fragmentation. Often smaller projects are running that support one early career scientist, as we then identified many projects. More than 40% of the projects have a budget lower than 250,000 euros for the project. Many past projects have a descriptive design of the research they're doing. So they describe who is there in a given environment. And microbiomes have been sparsely addressed in past research strategies before published before 2020. This schematic overview shows the potential for holistic integration of microbiome research. Different fields use similar approaches and methods to study microbiomes in each ecosystems, but also similar ecological approaches are studied in different fields. For example, the soil microbiome can be resilience or resistance to drought that is studied, or the gut microbiome changes to antibiotic is studied in a similar way. The research field should move from describing who is there, so the associations, towards more causality and mechanistic aspects. And this is important for knowledge-based, microbiome-based solutions. Otherwise, it's for example not clear why a solution works under one condition and not under another condition. Yeah, when microbiomes are manipulated in one ecosystem, for example, in the plants, it can affect microbiome in a connecting ecosystem. For example, if you eat a raw apple or a raw salad, that could affect your gut microbiome, and that affects your health. Thus, a one health or equal holobiont approach needs also to be considered. As such, we argued in this work package that a holistic approach is needed to understand, first of all, how a modulation of microbiomes affect the composition and the functions of that microbiome, as well as the effects of the changes on the ecosystem it is living in and on host functions. In addition, we should know how these changes in one ecosystem affect changes and features in connecting ecosystems. As such, we are calling for a systems approach in microbiome research and innovation. This will leverage microbiome functions for the transitions towards sustainable applications for the circular food system, and it will contribute to the sustainable development goals and Green Deal solutions. But there are also several conditions needed to spur microbiome research and innovation. Microbiomes need to be included in research and innovation strategies and research strategic research agendas. And Emmanuelle Maguin will present that later. Regulatory frameworks need to be adapted to microbiome-based solutions, and Yolanda Sanz will also discuss that later. We should also consider, as Tanja already introduced, wider communication of the potential of microbiomes and the benefits when we use microbiome-based solutions. And these educational needs will also be discussed later. In addition, the international network of stakeholders and scientists is also essential to spur microbiome research and innovation. And more information can be found in these two publications and they can be found on the MicrobiomeSupport website. And with that, I like to thank you for your attention. And if you have questions, you can ask them now, or you can send me an email.
Thank you so much, Annelein, and once more, many thanks for leading this mapping effort 2 times, so the original effort and the update. I would also, before we go to questions, just like to highlight that all of this data from the first mapping is also available on the website in form of the research database, where you can just access and search for different elements, and that this will be updated with the newest results by the end of the month. So having said that, are there any questions to Annelein now? So Annelein, there is one question in the chat about cyanobacteria, and if cyanobacteria would be considered as a part of the microbiome as they are actually algae.
Yeah, I would think so, because it's all microorganisms in the community that interact with each other.
Yeah, I would also like just also to complete to answer my Florence. We also had a paper published by Berg in 2020, if I'm not considered so, by whole consortium, but effort led by Gabriele Berg from Technical University in Graz, where we sort of try to redefine the microbiome definition and explain how, so try to go to universal definition. And Rike, thanks for posting the link to the database. That's great. Okay, I don't see any further questions or hands. Annelein, as all of the speakers will stay until the end of the event, so if anything pops, just please feel free to join it, ask in the chat, or just sort of continue then discussion later. Then to move to the next on our program, I would like to introduce to you Yolanda Sanz. She's leading a research group at the CSIC in Spain with a focus on human microbiome research and more particular in elucidating the role of the gut microbiota plays in the transition from health to disease. And I would like to also say that Yolanda was really instrumental in establishing the dialogue between the MicrobiomeSupport consortium and regulatory agencies and leading this discussion on the regulatory issues. So Yolanda, the floor is yours. We just don't see your presentation in presenter mode yet. So if you could switch. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks so much, Tanja, for the introduction. Well, in my exam, I will focus on regulatory needs to impulse the implementation of microbiome innovations. And in doing so, I will also address knowledge gaps and scientific challenges that are aspects discussed in the MicrobiomeSupport action, and especially during a workshop we organized last year. While the human gut microbiome is considered as a moderator of environmental exposures, buffering the effects of foods, additives, antibiotics, or drugs and other chemicals, and also is considered as a mediator of the biological effects of these exposures, mediating, for example, the metabolism of food and food constituents, and also interacting with different host organs and systems in such a way that in the end it affects many aspects of human health, from immune to metabolic and even mental health. So in few words, we now consider that the gut microbiome acts as an organ that may modify the nutritional safety and the overall healthy properties of every substance that may enter the food chain intentionally or unintentionally. Well, these concepts and principles are being also applied to other microbiomes associated with other ecosystems, to plants, soils, animals, terrestrial, marine, and other environments, as Annelein has explained very well. So now we consider that microbiomes are treasures we have to protect because impact directly on the health of the different ecosystems. And we also consider that microbiomes are opportunities to address the sustainable and developmental goals we have to face. For example, producing sufficient healthy foods for everyone. Around this concept, many applications are being investigated as well, whether the microbiomes could be a tool to diagnose health and disease or to predict disease, whether microbiomes could be a tool to treat or prevent disease in the different ecosystems, or whether this can be a tool to personalize nutrition or to improve the nutritional quality of foods or to improve productivity yields in primary production. But what we are realizing in the way that to translate this knowledge into real applications, it's rather complex. This is the fact because all these applications are based on new scientific evidence that has been generated in the absence of the standards. In many cases, these applications are based on pilot trials, and there is still insufficient large-scale testing to be approved. In many cases, we can see that innovators that are involved in the roadmap of these developments have limited knowledge about the regulatory landscape where they have to operate. And also considering that this is a new science, in many cases, we observe the absence or limited information about guidance into the regulatory roadmap. That's why we consider that microbiome science should be developed and should advance in parallel with regulatory science. That is the discipline responsible for developing the tools and the methodologies that can be acceptable by regulatory authorities and applied to the assessment of these new products or new practices that could reach the market. And while we consider that if we incorporate these methodologies for assessing microbiomes in this regulatory assessment, this could change, for example, the way the safety of substance that enter the food chain, the way this is evaluated could change. For example, how we evaluate food additives or chemicals or even novel foods that can be microorganisms not used previously for human consumption, as in the case of Akkermansia that was approved recently. And this can also change the way the efficacy of these innovative products that are based on microbiome components or directed to modulate microbiomes in different ecosystems can be performed. This is the case of feed additives or foods with health claims or plant protection products. In few words, if we progress in regulatory science and the integration of microbiome assessments in this field, in principle, we should facilitate the approval of these microbiome applications in such a way they can reach the market and the society in a timely manner. This can also impact the information that reaches the consumers via food labeling of other communication means that in Europe are regulated, and it could also contribute to incorporate not only nutritional but also sustainable goals that partly can be grounded on microbiome knowledge into dietary recommendations and food dietary guidelines. In such a way, we can impose further change in consumer behavior that in the end will impact on human health and also on planetary health. But well, in this context, for example, in a project I coordinate between 2013 and 18 called My New Gut, we already address the role of microbiomes, particularly the gut microbiome in dietary recommendations. We publish a series of opinion papers, but we have to admit also that little progress has been done so far in this direction. In fact, I summarize here a report of the EFSA that was published this year, evaluating the nutritional quality of the diet in Europe, and again concluding that the intakes of energy, saturated fats, sodium and sugar is high and is linked to chronic diseases, and on the other hand the intakes of fiber and other food constituents like potassium are low in most European populations. But even we know that the effects of dietary fibers are mediated in part by the gut microbiome. There is no mention to the role of the microbiome in any of these aspects. And in fact, in an editorial that was published by EFSA also recently, that was led by Caroline Merten, and I have the honor to participate in, it was recognized that in the absence of legal requirements to account for effects on microbiomes or mediated by microbiomes, there is no guidance or methodology in place that can be applied systematically to do these assessments and evaluate what could be the consequence on human, animal, or plant health yet. Well, this is the case in part because there are still many scientific challenges For example, there are many difficulties for assessing and meaning the role of a given microbiome in a specific ecosystem or host due to several weaknesses we still have in the field. For example, we are conscious that there is a high variability across population studies and even within individuals in relation to the associations established between specific features of the microbiome and health and disease status. There are many confounders and factors affecting these assessments. And we have shown that the results have reduced consistency that limits the progress towards establishing causality. So from these association studies, it's easy to draw false positive and negative conclusions. We can conclude that an adverse or beneficial association may occur in one study, but perhaps not in others because we all differ. And we can also conclude that the absence of an adverse or beneficial association does not ensure that this can be generalized to all situations. On the other hand, we have not defined yet what is the healthy microbiome. We are still discussing about whether this should be defined by taxonomic assessments or by assessing the functional capacities of the microbiomes, or whether we should use other ecological indicators, other metrics like richness, diversity, or evaluating the stability or resilience of the microbiomes. And we are still also discussing whether the microbiome metrics are sufficient to define and conclude that the microbiome is healthy, or whether we need to provide also some evidence of host-related endpoints. It's also difficult to disentangle what is a normal microbiome variation and what is an adverse variation, because there is high variability in the microbiome features, not only between individuals, also within an individual. The microbiome can vary depending on environmental exposures and also during the life course, and this is not necessarily adverse. There is also an important part of the microbiomes that are still uncharacterized, and also we have found many difficulties in cultivating some of the species, for example, that inhabit intestinal tract. So it's difficult to assess their function and their true role in terms of risk and benefits. And also we have limited knowledge about the role of low abundant microbes that in many cases are difficult to identify and detect from a health or risk perspective. And well, regarding the needs to incorporate microbiome assessments in regulatory science and regulatory assessments, we can identify clear missing points. For example, the need to define international standards and reference material for microbiome analysis. Also, the need to define what is a microbiome disrupting agent or what is a microbiome modulator. We also need to work on the development of methodologies and models that can be validated to assess when an effect becomes adverse or beneficial. And also, we need to establish criteria for reporting the results of microbiome studies. So all in all, we can conclude with the following messages. According to the evidence that has been published so far, we consider that we may miss opportunities and also take risks if we don't consider microbiomes in regulatory assessments. It's also obvious that we need a specific research fund oriented to regulatory needs. Regulatory training of academics and industrial developers is also key to facilitate the understanding of the legal requirements for the approval of innovative microbiome applications and products at early stages. And we should also ensure responsible communication of microbiome science to build trust around these concepts and the potential applications that can emerge in the future. So we consider that all in all, this could ease the translation of microbiome knowledge into applications and also their uptake in benefit of everybody. And well, that's all. If you have questions, I will be happy to take some in the time available.
Thank you, Yolanda, and thank you for this nice summary at the end, which was also a link to our next presentation. But before we continue, I'd like to open now the Zoom for any questions. Please also feel free to raise your hand and join live. So, no questions for Yolanda at the time? Okay, perhaps we will come to some questions later. Once more, thank you very much for Yolanda and all of your efforts, especially with involving EFSA and other agencies in our valuable discussions. So to our next presenter, I'm also really happy to present to you Martin Wagner, who is at the one hand professor at the University of the Veterinary Medicine in Vienna, but he is also the scientific coordinator of the Austrian Competence Center for Feed and Food Quality, Safety and Innovation. He's an expert on food microbiology, food microbiomes, and especially working in the area of linking them to food safety. And within this project, as one of the university representatives, he was also leading our effort on elucidating really the educational needs in the microbiome landscape, something which Yolanda now already mentioned. And Martin, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Tanja, for passing me the word. Hello to everybody, and I'm now delighted to share some ideas with you regarding the educational needs in microbiome research. This is a shared work with Rocio Olmo. She was a postdoc working on this project here, and yes, she has returned to Spain now and has done a fabulous job. Tanja, please, next one. I've been also looking a bit into the scientific literature, and because at the beginning of our ideas, I thought, is there any publication on the issue of education, microbiome in food? So I combined these search terms, and as you can see, if one combines microbiome in food, then you will find around 7,000 publications in the scientific literature. But if you're going to combine the search terms microbiome, food, and education, then you see that around 200 up to 700 papers are published every year on this issue. That doesn't mean that these papers are entirely based on elucidating factors for an improved education in that area, but at least they touch to some aspect the issue of microbiome education. So I was quite surprised by finding so many papers on that issue, on this topic in the scientific literature. Next one, Tanja, please. What we did is that we organized a workshop, and at the beginning we thought about which different circles of expertises do we need to address when organizing such a workshop, and it became clear to us that the needs for universities might be quite different from the needs of industry or even the needs of public health authorities and in the public health system. We had then a very interesting workshop organized encompassing around 70 researchers, academics, public health experts, and industry partners. We also organized 2 roundtables on these issues, and yeah, we wrapped the discussions up and produced a paper on that that finally is the basis now also of these short presentations. In the academia, we split a bit the issue into schools and not academic trainings from the issues or the topic that are of interest for universities, because I think these 2 aspects should handled a bit differently, and I will show you what I think is a best practice case on how we can boost microbiome research in schools. Next one, please. For public health specialists, we had a series of talks also given by EFSA, for example, and other national public health institutions. And we we collected information with regard to the needs, the recommended actions, and who should be the actors. It was very clear from the beginning that for public health institutions important to share the benefits with the consumers, to make them aware of the benefits, and as we have seen in the previous talks, the example that were given need also to be translated to the informed consumer circles. But it's also important to raise the awareness among governments and policymakers. I think a lot of, especially in food safety, the efforts are put on risk assessments, but still nowadays there doesn't exist a concept how to integrate microbiome information into state-of-the-art risk assessments. And EFSA was explicitly emphasizing that this is a task for the future. And then we saw some very nice examples on the need for microbiome literacy in the society, and that this should start quite early. We compiled a couple of actions, recommendations, that there should be, for example, also each and every consumer being addressed with regard to what we called precision medicine. So this could be information leaflets, for example, at the practices of practitioners, doctors. It could be also tailor-made information in commercials or in newspapers, print versions, and in other formats. It could be dialogues due to consumers. One issue in the discussion was that we shouldn't come back to the sometimes very unfavorable discussion as we saw them in Europe on GMOs, for example. And then there, as I said, there were some very actual examples given, and I'll show you one example a bit later. And here in that slide, you see who should be the actors on these issues. In the next slide, we have been addressing a bit the issue for schools. And here there was a consensus that knowledge should be really integrated into classroom teaching, that the teachers need to be trained in basic microbiology, and that this should best start already when the kids are quite young, so that they really understand the benefits and what microbiology means to them on a daily basis. We, and this, what I can show in the next slide, have, for example, in Austria here a program that it's called Sparkling Science, where industry needs to collaborate with schools, for example. And we are currently working on one of those microbial projects, microbial dynamics along the food chain, with 5 what we call gymnasia. And here the pupils take part in the project. They are around 14 to 16 years of age. They isolate they take the sample, they isolate the DNA, and in every of those schools, a MinION device is run then by the pupils, and they are doing all of the data processing in their data in their how to call it, their facilities, in their bioinformatics facilities. We are also keen for producing videos, webinars, and other communication tools, and the pupils then should take them to their own private sphere and discuss this issue of microbiome's impact with in the families and their private circles. In the next slide, we have been discussing on that issue already with universities. Here, the perspective is a bit different. I think many institutions run for good bioinformaticians. So we need to have curricula integrated, especially on these issues. It's very important that the training should be an integral part in the research projects. That young students need to be trained by the more experienced ones, so a kind of tutorial system. And I think it's also very important to make clear that being a bioinformatician is a real chance for the future. It's not just like an assistant job where you are doing just the bioinformatics for somebody else. It's really a own job profile with a very strong career track. And here we also compiled a couple of recommended actions that are coming along with training groups that come along with participation in congresses, conferences, educational courses, and others. And finally, we had the interest in education as raised by industry. So we had a series of talks given by research heads in industry. They also emphasized the point of intensified training with academic collaborators. There was a need expressed for a more targeted approach, training the people at multiple educational levels. So, because not for all of, let me say, the developmental scheme of an industrial product, the same type of expertise is needed. We discussed the issue of private and public funding, because industry usually is very strong if they have made a decision to start with, let me say, a deep sequencing group or something like that. So they are quite quick with that. So for them, it's more a strategic decision rather than, at least for the big industry, rather than a money issues, what's the case for many universities. And then there was a consensus that the collaboration drives it. Not only industry can do it, there must be always the support by basic science to translate the findings there and finally into the design of novel products. So finally, and this is, I think, already my last slide, the conclusions were that we need to take care that this dissemination and communication issues are an integral part of all research projects on the international level, but also on the national level. We need to enhance the visibility of research, also the public side, the public dimension of science and innovation. We need to work on the product confidence, especially in Austria. The confidence with science, scientific merits is quite low. If you look to Europe barometer scorings, for example, and at least here we also need to translate to the government, for example, and to stakeholders where the benefits are and how the public system can support research into that field. But we shouldn't be too complicated. Sometimes we need to simplify the messages by staying accurate and true. I think it's also a need to at least teach the children already from their entry into the school system, at least the basics in microbiology. International microbiology literacy initiative, for example, was mentioned as one example that at least heads for this really ambitious goal. And also in industry, there is a really demand for trainings, not given by, let me say, the employees at the companies themselves. It's more the idea of having a more intensified exchange between the academic side and industry. So this was the outcome of this seminar, and we're going to wrap it up for the scientific community, and you may read a paper about this issue in a couple of months. Thank you.
So thank you, Martin, so much. I see there was also one comment already in the chat from Carlos from FAO. Yeah, we also appreciate the greatly collaborations that we already had with the FAO, but there was something about there's going to also be an event on the microbiome literacy, obviously
Maybe could Karel, could you please comment on this global microbiome learning network dialogue? What is exactly meant by this initiative?
I'm not sure if Karel is still on the call. Let me check.
He has to.
Sorry for interrupting. I will also introduce it with a slide in my presentation.
Okay, super, Lene. Perfect.
And Fanette is also in the audience, so there will be people who can give.
Okay, good.
So perhaps Fanette, we have some time, can you perhaps provide some info now on that, because it fits now before we...
Yes, sure. So thank you for the great presentation. And so with the FAO, we are organizing some session on microbiomes, and we call that a learning network, because we involve people from FAO and from outside. And we already have several more really on the science 2 years ago. And now we're trying to present more example on how microbiome can be put in practice. So we had the first session on nutrition, a second one on agriculture, and a third one will be on microbiome literacy. So we especially appreciate your last presentation, and we are trying also to find a concrete example on how to put microbiome literacy in practice. So I think we will share the invitation with all of you.
Okay, super, perfect.
Thanks, Fanette. Raul, I see that you switched on your video. Do you want to enter the discussion?
No, I just wanted to say hello to all the
Okay,
friends.
hello. So do we have any other urgent questions for Martin and about education? I think this is really interesting aspect. I think there was also some really nice work done in the project, but there's still a lot to do, and it's really an important topic, because if people don't know what we have for them and how to use it, and if people don't trust it, and well, it's somehow unfortunately all in vain. Okay, we will then leave also this part of discussion for later, and we will then move on to Emmanuelle Maguin, who is a research director at INRAe, at the institute, at the Michaelis Institute, that has a mission to develop innovative research in the field of microbiology of food for health. So we are in the middle of the food system. Emmanuelle was is still for a few days a co-coordinator of the MicrobiomeSupport, and greatly supported us in leading this project to its success. And she put in a great effort in leading the development of the strategic research and innovation agenda, which somehow summarizes all of this work that was done in the project, and is sort of our message for the future. So Emmanuelle is now going to present main conclusions of this agenda that's soon to be published. Emmanuelle, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanja. Thank you. Do you see my presentation?
Yeah, but not in the presenter mode yet. We now see the wrong screen. We still need the other one.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's that one. Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I just want to get rid of that. Okay. Thank you, Tanja, for this nice introduction. So I'm going to tell you, to give you a flavor of the strategic research and innovation agenda for future microbiome activities and application that was developed in the frame of this coordination support action, microbiome support. And okay. So as Annelein already presented and Tanja, microbiomes are everywhere on Earth and of course in food systems. And in fact, also we don't see them, so we don't realize for a very long time, they represent above 90% of the Earth's biosphere diversity. So it's very important in terms of Earth planet ecosystem. They live in close interaction with all type of environment, including water, but also food matrices, plant, animal, humans. And they not only live with, but they are providing services that are important. And in the frame of food system, they are until recently unknown natural resources, which are extremely important, not only for the primary production of food, for its transformation, storage, for health, and human microbiome study are leading to medical application, but they are also extremely important to close the cycle, what we say, you know, to make the system more sustainable, to use, you know, to valorize waste, to treat wastewater, to use residues and co-products and transform them in high value produced, and to contribute to bioremediation. So taking this into account, the exploitation of these natural resources could have a strong impact on food system and could contribute to the sustainable development goal for food supply in, I wrote industrialized, urbanized society, but any society, to clean our environment, contribute to clean our environment, to mitigate climate change, and to improve or to support healthy life. And this is, of course, present in the Food 2030 European strategy or roadmap. Okay. We know, and Annelein also give example for that, that microbes and microbiome, so mixed of microbes, are moving into the food system, that there is flows. And we know that with very easy example, which is the case of food poisoning, because food is at any step contaminated and some pathogen can survive to the whole process and reach a consumer and start disease. But more recently, we also realize that antimicrobial resistance and antimicrobial resistant genes were flowing in the system and beyond the food system, and contribute to the development of resistance bacteria, which are a problem now. Of course, there is more positive example too, with, for instance, the transfer in our gut of food-associated microbiomes that contribute to our microbiota diversity and functions. Well, as Annelein clearly showed with the analysis of the literature, microbiome research is, in most of the case, fragmented, meaning that it focuses only on one or few areas of the food system. So it doesn't allow to have a comprehensive microbiome knowledge, and which require large-scale international, multi-year and multidisciplinary effort. And it's clear when we consider the entire food system, that a single country or a single research entity cannot tackle the entire topic or even individual fields in a satisfactory manner. So in that context, we identified that elaborating together a strategic research and innovation agenda can overcome the barriers of scale, reach sufficient critical mass, share data, and link different disciplines, and can also contribute to defragment the microbiome research area through alignment of priority between different food system stakeholders. So we use a kind of transparent multi-stage and multi-actor co-creation process, and we benefit from different activities of microbiome support, some of them being presented here. So the mapping and analysis not only of literature, but also strategic documents that was performed by Annelein and colleagues. Brainstorming session during our Common Ground workshop. Workshop on the identification of gaps and challenges in the field of food microbiome research. The workshop that Yolanda just mentioned about opportunities and needs for realizing the microbiome promises, and the workshop that Martin mentioned or presented on the requirement for education and training. All that lead to a draft of strategic research and innovation agenda. And then we went through online consultation, online survey with 2 rounds of consultation. And this led to the current SRIA proposal. So to give you some information about the survey's feedback, we had 200 participants who answered the questionnaires from 33 countries with a strong representation of Western Europe and Eastern Europe, but also contribution from the other part of the world. We see that scientists contribute to a high extent to this to the survey, but we also have contribution from industry, policymakers, and other experts. And you see that we reach a high level of agreement on the content of the strategic research and innovation agenda. The 3A is built or is comprised 5 interconnected pillars. One is on frontier research, so the current unsolved research question. This can only develop if you have some resources in terms of capacity. So the second pillar is about capacity building. For those infrastructure and capacity building and for research, it is extremely important to be able to harmonize methods and tools. And it's also important for knowledge transfer, innovation, and regulation. And all those aspects contribute to, or should contribute to improve the society awareness, public engagement, and education and training. So if we look at the first pillar on frontier research, so it's organized with 5 areas, and there is 15 key targets. So I will just mention the 5 areas. They concern the characterization and exploitation of food system microbiome diversity. The second one has the objective to use microbiome to boost sustainable food and feed production, to improve the quality and safety of food and feed products, to produce healthier food for healthier humans, and to expand the microbiome potential for a healthy planet. And then in smaller character, you have what correspond to the key targets. As I said, this can develop only if we have some long-term infrastructure, capacity building. So the three main infrastructure or needs that were identified correspond to microbiome biobank for various reasons, but to preserve the biodiversity and the innovation potential associated with the microbiomes and members of the microbiome, to replicate microbiome, to produce reference material, and to enable the design of what we call synthetic, but rationally designed functional ecosystem to provide services in given situation. The second aspect is a platform for past, current, future data sharing. So this would be in agreement or based on fair guiding principle. And we'll need also a work and will help to work on the harmonization and regular update of minimal data and metadata requirement to upload data in this platform. Then we also need analytical tools that are validated. So we think that it would be important to have them also accessible on the platform for those that have been internationally benchmarked, and that we need regular update of those tools and of the benchmark process. And this will allow also to access to other type of reference material, which are informatic modes. So this should allow to capitalize on projects and activities in different parts of the world, and this is really extremely important in compliance with the rule of ethics and deontology. The third pillar is very important as it concerns harmonization of methods and tools. And it's really, and the proposal is to set up an international microbiome standardization consortium or working group to speed up the development of standard operating procedures from sample collection to data analysis, to agree on reference material and on minimum requirement for storage and analysis of data in connection with Pillar 2, and to make sure that analysis tools co-evolve with the technologies. In addition, it will help to develop tools for multi-omic data integration and analysis, which are still a challenge, and to provide more robust interpretation tools, because sometimes they don't exist yet, for end users, from farmers to clinicians. Pillar 4 concerns knowledge transfer and innovation in a suitable regulatory framework. Research is important. All the aspects I already presented in the three other pillars are important, but of course, it's important also that all this research contribute to innovation and to new products. And as Yolanda already provided a more detailed conclusion on those aspects, we just summarize some of them. So the proposal would be to set up a food microbiome public-private partnership, gathering the entire food system value chain and involving end users. It will be to build a microbiome expert platform to advise regulatory bodies. For example, that was mentioned by Yolanda, to define metrics, biomarker, indicators, to determine benefits and risks associated with microbiome changes, also to define new methodology, and so on. And the third point would be to develop new types of projects to promote or to facilitate, to ease integration of microbiomes in regulatory science and vice versa. So the idea would be to, in research and innovation project, to systematically involve regulatory science experts, and on the other way, to design project or call for project intended to respond to regulatory question or question important for regulatory aspects related to risk and benefits of microbiome. Pillar 5 concern public engagement, society awareness, and education. So it's important to improve stakeholders and society awareness on the importance and the potential of microbiome within the food system and bioeconomy, and to prepare them to innovative microbiome application. People need to understand to be able to decide by themselves whether they want to use this type of application or not. We would like to enhance public engagement in science and innovation in the field of food system microbiome, communicate more on or develop realistic expectation based upon progress in microbiome research, support the international microbiology literacy initiative, and generate in this framework teaching material on microbiomes, as already mentioned by Martin, and develop specific training, education, new curricula to meet the need of policymakers, regulatory experts, end users and professionals, industry, and maybe some other audience or group, and support networks for the exchange of experience using microbiome, such as creative living labs or the FAO Global Learning Network. To conclude, I would like to have this kind of take-home message for scientists. So through this collaborative effort, common themes and priorities reveal themselves across sectors with clear scientific objective and targets. This strategic research and innovation agenda will soon become public. So please feel free, don't hesitate to use it as a first building block to define national strategies or to push for a national strategy on food microbiome in your country, and to become an active member of an international microbiome consortium. And you can keep us informed of your effort. We will try to help if we can. The second conclusion is more for policymakers. So microbiome supports transdisciplinary international task force elaborated the strategic research and innovation agenda through a transparent and inclusive process. This agenda concretizes the alignment of strategic priorities on 5 pillars. The implementation of this agenda ensures that the best use of will be made of microbiomes to develop healthy and sustainable food systems and to meet the current challenges facing the planet and humankind. This agenda also provides a first central and consensual building block toward an international microbiome consortium. Such consortium would implement the agenda in all its dimensions, be a resource center available to policymakers and regulators, maximize research impact and sustainability through coordination of project, program, and action, enhance sharing and capitalizing on activity, results, and innovation of past, current, and future projects. And last but not least, I want also to mention that microbiome is a very active market with predicted growth, which is quite important. As you see in 2020, the market represents almost $5 billion, and this is expected 5 years later to be a little bit above $9 billion. And it's not only, of course, there is lots of application and development for human health, but you see that in 2020, agriculture and environmental market, microbiome market, accounted for around 40% of this market. So it's very important, and considering our economical situation, I think it's also something that we should consider. I will finish here by thanking all the microbiome support partners and stakeholders, and more specifically, those colleagues from AIT, CSIC, FFoQSI, Helmut mentioned, DLR, Wageningen, LL-BioEconomy, UFIC, and my colleagues from INRAe, who really contributed to this work during the project. Thank you for your attention, and I'll be pleased to discuss with you those aspects.
Thank you, Emmanuelle, and thanks again for leading this effort on summing up all of this plethora of inputs together. I think it's really important, and I find the key messages are really important for the future. Are there any urgent questions for Emmanuelle in the group, in the forum? I have one which I will say for the last round. Okay. I don't see any hands. I don't see any questions in chat. Just please follow the chat. There's a lot of interesting information there, even if they're not questions. So there's now a new link to the bioeconomy webpage of the FAO. So there's a lot of interesting information also shared in the chat. So keep your eye on it. So we then once more thanks, Emmanuelle, and we will move now to our last speaker of the day before the discussion. So Lene Lange, and I'm really happy she's with us today. She has a long-standing record as a research director in both industry and academia, and she acquired extensive experience from all parts of knowledge value chain, and currently she's a director of bioeconomy research and advisory. And Lene is going to give us a little bit of vision for the future. So where, what new openings or what new possibilities the microbiome offers us. Lene, I will share your presentation in a moment, and then the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. And thank you also for inviting me, for giving me this opportunity. I will focus on how we are going to already now can use so much the insight we have as a result of the microbiome research, which so many colleagues here have presented. So the title, Improve Food Security and Health by Using Microbiome Insight for a Targeted Valorization of Residues and Side Stream. As you can see, I combined two dimensions, the microbiome and its insight in understanding it, its function, with actually the bio-based valorization of what we otherwise waste. So Tanja, please next. And microbiome has created a wealth of new opportunity for circular bio-based industry. Health promoting effect of biorefinery products can be documented. So when you are saying what we have now is a gut health promoting animal feed product, then we have able to actually provide evidence, not just hot air, not just postulating, but provide evidence. Similarly for all of the, soil, plant, food, animal gut health, human gut health, etc. So next one. So I combine it with Tanja, next, thank you. It takes a little bit, fine. The next one is that we are try to imagine all the different types of biomass for valorization for the bio-based economy. It is a yellow, the green, the blue, the gray, and the brown. You can see them for yourself. The point is, for so many, when you look through them, you can see there is a very strong element of plant cell wall or seaweed cell wall material. And exactly the polymers for the plant cell wall or the seaweed is actually some of the beneficial prebiotic effects of a product made from such biomasses, better than from the primary product proteins and starch, etc. Next one. Then, so by combining these two, we can make really combine and make a significant improved societal value. So circular bio-based product building on microbiome insight. And it goes from microbial cultures for microbiome health is actually can be grown on residual biomasses, being more affordable. Prebiotics made by enzymatic treatment are polymer-rich residual biomasses, more affordable. Microbiome uses starter culture, again, grown on, designed and guided by that we know how enrichment of a biodiversity, restoring of a biomicrobiome looks. So in that sense, also for restoring biodiversity, very, very interesting. I cannot go in detail, but next one, Tanja. For this, the many types of biomass, remember here I have them again given as a color code. And for here, we have that, remember, this is not biorefineries and the different type here. It's not just big new installments. It can be upgrading of an in-house residue in your company already producing food. So try to remember, oil refineries were big, biorefinery and bio upgrading, microbial and enzymatic. It can be small and high value. Next one. So I said I would have an email, just a slide on this. The FAO Microbiome Working Group is really, they have here in the last half year been very strong in saying microbiome is the missing link between food, nutrition, and health. It's such an amazing statement and also achievement from a very significant player. And Fanette already touched upon some of the activities they do, but I have just here listed it also. Global Learning Network Dialogue, Explore, Communicate, Interconnection, and so on. Fanette mentioned that, but also inform policy work about opportunity related to microbiome science to address global challenges. So that is a very strong new move, and I think it's a fantastic match between possible between this and then the bio-based economy in the new circular bio-based economy program in Horizon Europe. Next. And what is it for instance, one example, what can it be, for instance, what makes it a gut healthy product? It could be a short oligos of the plant polymer xylem, the C5 hemicellulose, from pectin oligos. And the important, and I think you can imagine, when all these types of biomass and residues we now downgrade or make biogas out and so on, we can actually make health promoting food and feed ingredients. And it would be from a basic material, which is available, accessible, affordable, and therefore also be something which could really change and be a enrichment and strengthening of food security and also health in the globally. Next one. New statistic, let me have here a little more aspects of this cross between what happens in microbiome and the rest of, bio-based, etc. We know that people who have had COVID-19 have higher risk for developing diabetes. Statistics have told us. So robustness in health in public health is even more important than it has been ever. We can make it by making more of such gut health promoting food products available. So I think it's also important that the microbiome research has paved the way for such improving that it is both local and global business opportunities. So I'm trying in this short presentation to say already with the present knowledge, we can actually move because and that is relevant for both making improvement locally, but also globally. Next one. In here, just 2 weeks ago, there was a new paper on microbiome ethics. And here, what we are doing in this is that we are in a microbiome support project co-authored a large part of the members of this wonderful big project. We have looked into and found it necessary to tell the world that time is right to do, to try to look at microbiome ethics in a One Health perspective. Because this, as you have heard from the last 4 speakers, this is moving so fast and it has such fantastic potential for actually doing something public for a global audience, for be prominent for health in the environment, soil, plants, less pesticides needed, restoring for animal, less antibiotics needed, and for health of people. That we need to look at whether we do it right, that everyone will, in a democratic way, such kind of new knowledge will actually be distributed and available and accessible all over the world and in certain areas. And our ethics analysis has been done by, as you can see in the figure here, that we are actually analyzing in the 4 basic ethics: do good, don't harm, respect, and act justly. And with that, we believe that, or we have made recommendations. And the most, I can only share, recommendation guiding how we are going to use all this new knowledge. And I can only just mention one of them, that I think we all know that the international treaty has in the UN and FAO regime has actually made that all of our basic food crops are global common heritage. That is no one, the wheat doesn't belong to one country. The apple don't belong, the potatoes is not just one country in South America. It is global common heritage. And we are here recommending that also the gut microbiomes become global common heritage. Without those, we will not be able to use all what's good for us for nutrition and health from the food crops. So it's a continuum from the international treaty. Next. So very fast, Tanja, be ready to move fast on this one. CBE, circular bio-based economy, and microbiome products. Here is just for you to grasp improvement of soil. Inoculant for enriching soil microbiomes. You can see here, you can read it by yourself also. The next one. I know we are a little bit late. So CBE and microbiome products for improved robustness of plants, improved nutrient efficiency, stronger tolerance to spring drought, etc. It is also another where there are already products. Next one. Improved circular bio-based economy microbiome on bioag products, increased plant tolerant again to drought. Very important, you can have it generated by seed distributed products, even outside coatings, but also microbial like fungal endophytes. That is a new, fantastic new development. Bioag for robustness, upgrade of residues, can actually make more value from drought-tolerant traditional crops. I believe we are so far that we have seen so much of food security threatened in Africa and in India that we need to reintroduce the millets and the sorghums to actually, because wheat is not strong enough and maize the same in those harsh climate change challenge conditions. And by making the farmers have benefit not just from the grain, but also from upgrading the residues, make it worthwhile to switch. Next one. See, improved animal gut health. We have also a new knowledge here. And here, remember, it's not just probiotics alone. It's not prebiotics alone, but it's probiotics plus prebiotics plus anti-inflammatory compound metabolites, which make the long-lasting effects. And that is where such studies are much further in animal gut, because we can analyze all parts of the gut system and the microbiome changes, not just from the fecalia as in human, because we can do it on pigs slaughtered for being used as food. So much. Those three is a very, very strong cocktail of impacts. Next one. Same thing here, gut healthy feed. One more where we are using the rapeseed pulp, combine it with the brown algae, the big kelp, and co-ferment it with different types of lactic acid bacteria. Next one. So, nutrition, healthy food. This will be my second last. Sustainable nutrition and healthy food. I had the pleasure of being part of the project where we want to make a sustainable refugee camp. And I could see that with what was available and now disrupted and being discarded as a waste, even in a organic waste in a refugee camp. That were banana peels, and it was also the neighboring cassava starch pulp, which could be used, and you could grow yeast and make a gut healthy, protein-rich, locally produced, where it would be fantastic getting rid of only relying on food aid. So the last slide, I am here just saying, last but not least, remember we need to use all what we can in molecular tools or develop system for early warning of new pandemics, virus, bacteria, antimicrobial resistance genes. And this is important based on monitoring the microbiomes of wastewater treatment. It is an enormous muscle, and let us get it done before a new pandemic is over us. With this, I would like to just have my final slide saying thank you so much. By combining circular bio-based technologies with microbiome insight, we can do that already now, and we have improved food security and public health at reach within both locally and globally. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Lene, for these really motivated final statements. I would like now to open your presentation, but also all other presentations for discussion. I would also like everyone who likes to be featured in our little group photo also to start switching on their cameras. We would like to make, as I said, a group photo of the participants of the event. And please just raise your hand or start typing in the chat. We are open for all suggestions. Everybody's now more worried with their hair than with the questions. I would like to say that for me, it was really in the past 4 years fascinating to see how stakeholders connected and also how we connected also our aims across different initiatives. So I found the work that we had together with FAO, especially in the last 2 years, but also with EFSA and different stakeholders, really amazing. I think we understand that we all need to work together. And I also think that what we also understand is, and I'm not sure, I think Emmanuelle mentioned it, we need to also work internationally. Not a single country or not a single project is going to be able to save the world. I'm now also just going to just start by asking a really provocative question, something that I also asked recently at the Phytobiomes conference. We have all of these different regulations across the world. Yeah, so even in Europe for, getting new products on the market, depending on what the product is. This is a huge hurdle for especially industry and introduction of the new products. Now, I would especially like to ask non-MicrobiomeSupport members for their comment on this, but also everyone feel welcome. What do you think, how could we really make an impact on that point? Because this is, for me, I think the education, yes, there is a lot to be done, but there are also ways to do it. But I would also like, how do you think, how can we really bridge this regulatory gap and start really making some advancement of this promise that microbiomes offer. So that's now my big question to this silent group. Any ideas?
I guess, Tanja, one area would be actually standards. So if there could be common standards, I think might be easier approach initially than regulations, because regulations will take time, I think, to get convergence. But if there were scientific standards, I think that would help greatly.
Thank you, Colette, for this comment. And I want to also perhaps emphasize once more standards or recommendations for the standards. And this also came a little bit in Emmanuelle's presentation. We had a whole work package on that, and actually a work package that was quite active in publishing. So the big issue was, how narrow the standards can be in this fast evolving field. But there were some interesting, at least, recommendations that came out of it. So I would like to, I already posted a link to our publication site. So just you can see some of this here. Any other comments? I also see, at least I recognize some names, some of the especially industry representatives here, or also the FAO representatives. What would you see as the next most important step in this transition, in really transition between the research and the implementation? Yeah, Fanette, please.
I think you already all mentioned that, and I think it's one of your questions, Tanja. So it's not really, I'm not sure I'm helping, but I think what we really see also from our side, it's really making the connection with the policymaker. So I think when I would say the policymaker, and then from FAO side, it's really also involving, it's one of your conclusion, I think also, Lene, it's involving low and middle income countries. I think it's essential that we connect with the policy, but we do it not only in Europe or United States or the North, but the same also helping low and middle income countries to do that also in their policies. So that's just one comment that we have and we find the most difficult, I think. Thank you.
Challenges, I agree. Lene.
Thank you, Fanette, for taking this up even more, specifically. I think we need to act now. We have had this big circular bio-based economy program since 2014, and I've tried for getting an international strategy every year. And I have for 4 days ago, we had the bioeconomy conference and in Brussels. And I made a lot of groundwork working with all very, very highly connected people, all central for this. And I could see that there could be a new type, if I can get new pot of money for this. And then maybe CBE could be the one, if they want to do undertaking it, could actually build a portfolio, a project where we collaborate Europe and Africa, Europe and India, Europe and Brazil, wherever, Europe and China, in the areas where the local residues and side streams could be upgraded. And that can be done. So we in Europe work on local residues and finding the best in those different low income and developing countries. And I think that is the time to have made this kind of collaboration instead of only so far we have made the collaboration EU, for instance, in Africa, in classical food research. So I really hope we will make some papers and move forward in this area. And I can tell you in scientific committee of CBE, I will do my very best, as I've tried to do the same in microbiome research. and win much more success in the microbiomes research, because you have the international outlook already, as Emmanuelle told.
Thank you, Lene. And I think this is also what I have reading now, also some comments from the chat about the 3 steps described in the pillar 4 of SRIA that seem to be very relevant, and also the cooperation in science. Also the next steps about the communication. We heard a lot on communication today. I think we all agree about that. I think why we were also really glad to organize this event is we are thinking about the life after microbiome support, but I think it's also we need to try to keep this torch moving on. We have done so much in the past 4 years, and we just don't want this to end up, in some few papers and the website that's going to stop being visiting. So that's why we are really trying this final push for spreading the word. I would just like now, there's one comment in the chat which I don't understand. So David, you had a question, how to move toward in this food microbiome private partnership. What did you mean by this? Could you perhaps elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yes, hello, and thank you for bringing this question up. I was referring to the food microbiome private partnership, still elaborating on the pillar 4 of the SRIA that Emmanuelle presented, because it could be so to build up on what you were saying, it could be a nice continuation of the effort in microbiome support.
Yes, thank you, David. I think the question now is that because SRIA is a proposal, and now we have to push all together. I mean, if you are interested, of course, to get policymakers and microbiome scientists and stakeholders to use this SRIA proposal and to make a kind of roadmap from it, and to push to get some means to implement it, because otherwise it will be one SRIA among others. So I think there's lots of possibilities. The best would be to push for a project for European support to start a European microbiome network with different activities, different working groups on standardization, on public-private partnership, on different aspects. And I think if we don't have that, and I've seen that with many European projects, you achieve a fair amount of work during 3-4 years of your project, and then you don't have another funding, so it's kind of staying there. And I think really we are trying to push for some prolongation of the work, some sustainability. I think it's really a main question for European projects and European actions.
I fully agree with that.
Yeah. And to go backward a little bit regarding low and medium income country, I think it's very interesting. It's a very interesting situation, because they can avoid some of the mistakes that we did in industrialized country. They are in a kind of mixed systems, and we can really learn from each other, because part of their population, or in some given countries, the food system are more provide healthier products than really industrialized food system, from what we know now about the impact on microbiomes. And they have usually high diversity of microbiome, much higher than in industrialized countries. And on the other hand, some of those low income or medium income countries, they start to industrialize, to urbanize, and so on. And we can share what we observe in our country and avoid some mistakes maybe.
Thank you, Emmanuelle. I'm also keeping my eye on the clock. We have 5 minutes left on the clock. So, okay, Lene.
I just inspired by Emmanuelle, fantastic report and overview, international, I mean, amazing. But maybe should we try to go for philanthropy money in the sense looking in from the crisis, looking in from the food, broken food security, climate change, flooding in Pakistan, you name it. And I think we could serve a global purpose by do what you are saying, but then just change it a bit in organizing towards meeting the challenges, the global challenges, also of food and health in the world.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think in the implementation, it's one aspect that we have to think about is that to look at each of the pillars and to analyze for each of the pillars, what are the means, who should contribute, what are the means that we can find to try to really implement it. And I'm sure there is opportunities for sure.
Thank you. Thank you both for this. And as you know, we are working on this and I hope that we will come up with solution. Are there any really last minute questions or comments or messages from anyone here? Good, then I will start closing this event. I will first like to thank all of the speakers of today and presenters of today. I would also like to thank Zrike for supporting us on the technical side. I think we had really a smooth session. I would also like to thank all of the MicrobiomeSupport consortium members. Some of them are now in the audience, not everyone, but thank you all. We had amazing 4 years together. We did have a COVID challenge, but we managed to achieve all of our aims and goals. And I think we also managed to actually go beyond what we dreamt at the beginning, also in terms of publications and resources and everything. So Angela is unfortunately not here today, but from my side, a huge thank you on all of you. And you know, I'm really, really sad that this project is finishing and I really hope that we will find an opportunity. I would also like to thank FAO on the one side for allowing us to have this event, because I think it's really important to spread the word about the MicrobiomeSupport and what we are doing, but also about this nice collaboration that we have established, especially in the last 2 years. And I think it's really important to join the efforts and to carry this torch further. Please stay tuned on our website, on our newsletters and our Twitter. We will post all of the news and developments there. And if you want to, if we manage and if you want to join us in the future, please do so. It was really great being with all of you. And please, just one really last request from my side, please use our resources in your projects, in your future projects. We have them for kids, we have them for grown-ups, we have them for policymakers. Use them and carry our message on. It would be a great help, not only for us as a project, but also for the microbiomes in the food system in general. So with this, thank you all very much. Have a nice afternoon. I really enjoyed this session and I hope it was also, you found at least 1 or 2 useful messages for you. Thank you all and have a great day. Bye.
Thanks a lot, Tanja. And a big thanks to you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Annette.
Thank you, Tanja.
Yeah, thanks, Inga. Bye.
Bye.